Right, welcome to episode 4 of the Reptile Chronicles podcast with me, Ken from Viv Visions. Today we've got a super special guest on. Eddie goes by the alias of Father Blue. So without further ado, let's get him on and we'll talk his vision and passion for Varanus McCrae, the blue tree monitor. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, dude? Good to be here.
What is going on? Thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking time out of your day to speak to me.
Yeah, no problem, man. This is kind of exciting. This is the, any chance I get to talk about blue tree monitors is always a fun time, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. Right, so for the people who don't know you, I'm pretty sure everyone does know you for what you do. So can you just tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course, man. So my name is Eddie. I go online by the name Father Blue, and I work specifically with blue tree monitors here in New York City. I have a pretty large group. At one point, I was saying that I had the largest captive group here in the U.S., but I might not. I don't really care about those kind of like accolades or anything like that no more. But I have a group of 8 tree monitors that I'm working towards a large captive breeding program to help establish them here all over the USA and all over the world so that we can help them from their declining populations in the wild,
Nice. Okay. So how did you get into reptiles and what was your first reptile?
It's funny you say that. I've been keeping reptiles for like I'm 31 now. I've been keeping reptiles since about like 16, I would say. And I got into it pretty early, kind of like the same as everyone else, man. Going on YouTube, and I got introduced to like Brian Barczyk and those guys early on with snake bites, and so I always love animals, And back then there was a big craze for Savannah monitors. So everyone on YouTube had a Savannah monitor back then. And that kind of was like the dive into like reptiles. I was a 16, 17-year-old, and I convinced my mom to let me use like half of my bedroom to build a giant enclosure for Savannah monitor. Like baby little monitor this big was taking up like a giant portion of my bedroom, that I shared with 2 other brothers at the time. And that's just where it all started. It just snowballed from there, and I'm here now,
Yeah, man. Same here. Bearded dragon turns into 20+ animals, but yeah. Couple of 2 quick fire questions. This is obviously the first one I know the answer for. Lizards or snakes?
Ooh, lizards always, man.
Yeah, and tarantulas or scorpions?
I like them both, dude. But if I had to pick, if I could only live with one for the rest of my life, probably tarantulas. They're just cooler, in my opinion.
And actually, I've got another question for you. If you could own any animal other than McCrae, what would it be?
Are we talking about like no constraints or like within my constraints?
Anything.
I'd have a blue whale. If I could own any animal in the world, I'd have a blue whale. I just think to have I don't know. It sounds messed up, and those animals belong in the ocean. But to have an animal that was just that massive, I could just like ride up on his back and go across the sea. I think that would be sick, man.
That's the first on this podcast.
Okay. They're one of my favorite animals. That's why I would say that.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm dreaming why I say I can own a tiger, but it's never going to happen in this country. So. So if you could tell the listeners, how did you get into blue tree monitors, and how did you know they were for you?
Well, I think with anybody that gets into any type of animal, you start going down a rabbit hole of like, what else is out there, And back then there was a lot of like forums, not like Facebook forums, but actual website forums where people would post up the animals that they kept, And it was like a cool community of people similar to the Facebook forums, but just different. And I remember I was on this reptile forum from way back in the day. It was called Reptizone, and it had a lot of cool old school keepers. And one day someone posted in the monitor page, I was there every day, someone posted a picture. It's like a famous picture of like all the tree monitors held up in one person's hand. And it showed like the blues, the blacks, the yellows, the greens, all in one person's hand and like in between their fingers. And that was just like, wow. I was like, whoa, these are, you can keep these. Like I'm over here with a dinky little Savannah monitor, and they have these things that look like, you know, the stones, the infinity stones. And I'm like, wow, this thing is crazy. So I started researching about tree monitors. And at the time, everyone was like, they're too skittish. They're real flighty. They're full of parasites. They die on you immediately. There was virtually no captive bred tree monitors when I was doing. A couple people had success here and there. Canadian cold blood was still very rampant. But even Sundown Reptiles is probably just starting with this. Like again, there was a very small handful of people that were captive breeding these animals at that time. And I found my first pair for sale ever. I had never seen them looking at all the places where you can buy them. I'd never seen one for sale. And it was the first time I saw a pair for sale. It was a pair of blue tree monitors, male and female wild caught, from a store in Georgia. And I remember the guy worked with me for an entire like 3 months to pay these things off. And then I got them shipped on my birthday, which made everything more memorable. And then once I got the animals, just the learning of them was so intense. Like I got onto the tree monitor page. I started connecting with people in Europe. I started connecting with people in the US, and people were like, you need these giant cages. Some people were like, you need these small cages. And I think the love of like being pushed towards the larger cages by the European guys, because those are the guys that I really took a lot of my information from, the Germans and those guys. They were like, build a giant, as big of a cage you can, and make it naturalistic as you can, and do all this stuff. And that just made me fall in love with like how technical you could get with this stuff. Like, you know, my first cage I ever built for a tree monitor, a pair, was like a 7 foot wide, 7 foot tall, 2 feet deep enclosure from my first pair of tree monitors because of the guidance of these European guys. And then I did a whole fake rock wall, my first time doing fake rock walls, and taking care of those animals and learning about those animals so in-depthly just made me fall in love with them. And then after that, it was just like, wow, I really love these animals. Let me see what else I can do with them. And at the time, I didn't have the idea of like doing conservation or working with them. I just really loved the animals. And I think I was getting obsessed with the animals that I started collecting as many as I could when I found them. And then I realized just like, wow, okay, these things are hard to come by. They're so sought after. What's going on with them? And then the research led on to what's going on truly with the animals. And it's evolved into this like passion project of like keeping them for conservation, breeding them, and just keeping the spirit and the information of tree monitors alive, you know? I know, sorry for getting so deep with that, but it's something I'm really passionate about, you know?
Yeah, I can see that in you, mate. You're very passionate about your blue trees. And that'll lead me to my next question. So what are your plans for breeding with your McCrae? So
the big picture of this whole project is to breed them here in captivity. I'm not saying I'm going to be the best breeder or anything like that. I'm not looking to compete with any of the people that, you know, breed animals for a livelihood. I'm trying to breed these animals to establish here in the USA a little bit more readily, with the focus on zoological institutions here in the USA. So my plan is when I get these animals to breed and reproduce, the excess animals that I don't intend to keep for myself or don't go towards my mission, I'm going to be donating to any institution willing to take them. And then hopefully with my guidance and help or whatever, I can help them eventually help reproduce those animals, you know? So that's the plan. From there, I want to use the money whatever money is raised from this, to put back into a larger project, back into Indonesia, to help with just repopulation, understanding, education, and things like that over there. I'm very passionate about that land now, ever since just diving a little bit more heavy into this whole subject. So I'm really passionate about doing that. And as a side mission here, I'm trying to then develop a couple different lines of tree monitors that are just more color inducive. So breeding animals for specific traits like high blue animals, high black animals, and high white animals, you know? So those traits that I'm looking for, the excess are going to go to donations, and then also to fund these expeditions in Indonesia, and also educational resources that I'm trying to develop for that.
Okay. That's really, really, really good work. And it's nice to see that you're doing this not for your own gain, it's for the population and the world's gain.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I've been saying this constantly because I think if I was in this for the money, I've been doing this for like 4.5 years, almost 5 years. If I was in this for the money, I think I would have given up a long time ago and just got into an animal that would have made me money, because I haven't made any money from this. I've poured in a lot of money. I've spent a lot of money. I spent a lot of time and resources that I'm never going to get back. And if it was something that I was looking to make a profit off of or take in money, I think I would have given up, like I said, and bred ball pythons or something like that would have made me money. Like this is something that like I'm fortunate enough where I don't need to rely on animals to pay my bills. Mm-hmm. So this is completely a passionate project and something that I'm trying to do to what's the word? I'm trying to I forgot what's the word. Inspire others to want to do the same with other species, So, and to educate, I had a lot of people help me at the beginning, but there was also a lot of people that gatekept a lot of information, and I want to help with that barrier that people might have. So,
yeah, that's brilliant to hear. There is a lot of gatekeeping in certain communities. That's a given. Unfortunately, it's the communities that sometimes we live in. So, next question. So you said you had how many Macrae was in your collection?
Right now, I have 8 total. I've had probably over the years, I've had close to like maybe 15, maybe 16, but they've moved, here and there, and I've settled down to a collection of 8 right now. So I have 4 females, 4 males. 3 of my females now have bred for me. 2 have produced eggs. I literally just last night, this morning, I found a clutch from one of my first-time females, which is really cool. And at the moment as we're talking, I have 2 of them reproducing right now or mating right now, which will hopefully prove out a 3rd girl. And so that's what I have right now. But the plan is by the end of the year to add in 4 more female Macrae and maybe 2 more male Macrae to this group as well. Nice.
That's really good. That's really, really good. So I want to get into a little topic. I don't know if you want to talk about it too much, but if you would like to tell us about your trip to the Batanta, I would really like to talk about that. So
man, of course.
Just tell me how your 30-day encounter went with, the islands of Batanta.
Yeah, man. So the island of Batanta, man, is such a magical place, dude. The Raha Ampa and all those islands out there, beautiful. And if anybody ever gets a chance, anyone listening to this ever gets a chance, please make an effort to try to get out there. But the experience was phenomenal. So we went out there for a 30-day expedition, and we were able to hop pretty much the entire northern side of the Batanta Island, looking for the Macrae or the blue tree monitor in the wild. And the reason behind this is for a documentary that I'm developing over here in the USA to talk about the impact of the reptile hobby on those animals, what's happening to those animals in the wild, and then certain individuals here in the USA trying to help combat what's happening over there. So it's almost a year-long project, and we hope to finish that out by the end of the year or so. But that was the entire motivation for the trip. But during the entire expedition, we were able to locate a handful of animals, which was really exciting, very fun. And to be quite honest, man, it's something that I can't wait to do it again. And we're actually going to be doing it again a couple more times this year to continue this project. So again, we were there 30 days. We camped out in the middle of Batanta for about 3 weeks out of those 30 days that we were out there. And I'm talking about middle of the jungle, eating off the land, drinking water off the land type of deal, like camping in hammocks and tents and stuff like that. No electricity aside from what I brought for electricity to power all the camera equipment and things like that. But man, it was crazy. And we ended up finding a total of 4 individuals, 4 tree monitors. So not a lot of tree monitors, unfortunately, out of the whole time, because it was very difficult to find these guys, but a whole load of different animals, from smaller lizards to birds to so much stuff, man. So much stuff. It was crazy out there.
Nice. I did watch your some of your stuff that you put on your Instagram, and it's quite spectacular stuff. It really
Yeah,
is.
thank you, man. Yeah, I want to put out so much more, dude. You have no idea how much I want to put out, but it's just there's a fine line I have to draw so that I don't spoil too much of what I'm trying to make and everything like that, you know.
Yeah. So when you was out there and you're in your search for the blue tree monitors, what was the climate like, and what was the habitats like?
Oh man, the habitats were definitely something that I wasn't expecting, right? I was expecting to be like middle of the jungle, dense forest type of thing. And what we found while we were out there were these forests were mostly based off of like really tall trees, not many shrubs on the ground or anything like that. You would think you see pictures of like the Amazon and there's all these bushes and all these little small plants. Everything that was growing out there were really tall trees because there are these dense islands, and so all these plants are competing for the resources. So the only thing that can really live out there is trees growing up high to get the sunlight, right? And so it was a mix of very dry terrain, but also very wet and muddy terrain. So it would go from like almost like a swamp area, like a mangrove swamp area, and then immediately transform into like a more harder, compact clay, hard rock area, over there. And then the terrain itself was very hilly. There was never a section that was like a flat section. Everything was at some type of an incline. And the elevation would change drastically when you're trekking through these areas. A very difficult place to trek, to be quite honest. Humidity was out the roof while we were in the sub canopy floor. So on the floor, you would get humidity ranges that were around like 85 to like 90% humidity in these ranges. And then as we would climb up higher elevation and be passing the canopies, then you would feel a significant drop in the humidity and feel more breeze that would be coming through, cooling down the top sections of these areas a lot more, which is really funny that we found that because, when we were looking at where the tree monitors are hanging out and living the majority of the time, they're living up in these taller sections of the trees and not necessarily down underneath the canopy floor. The only time they're coming down to the canopy floor is to go get food or the like, but when we were investigating them, we would see them up high, super high up in the trees, resting between two branches, almost like leaning out to like just rest out. And they were not very much on the ground or anything like that. So it was a really, really crazy terrain, to be quite honest. But yeah, that was kind of, so we went there during the monsoon season, during the wet season. And one of the interesting things that I noticed is that I was imagining it being rainy the entire time. So I bought so much gear for rain protection. And one of the things that we did notice was that it would rain almost every other day while we were out there, and majority at nighttime it would rain. And it would rain consistently after about like 1 o'clock. It would rain until like 4 or 5 a.m. And then stop. And then on the dot, almost every other day around like, I would say 10 to 11, it would rain up until like 1 p.m. and then stop for the rest of the day. It would be super dry right after that. And that was consistent throughout our time over there,
Oh, that. I don't know. Like, I thought it'd always be, like, say, monsoon season, raining constantly.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought the same thing.
So, yeah, you said the humidity is like, what? So 80, 90 humidity.
Yeah. Well, when you're walking underneath the canopy, yeah.
And then, with like, what the daytime and nighttime temperatures?
Oh, that's a good question. So, and this was really interesting as well when we were out there. So, daytime temperatures while we were out there consisted of about like, I would say the average is about like 85 to maybe 87, 88 throughout the day while we were over there. So it's pretty hot, right? Pretty hot. And then when you're on top of that humidity, that temperature easily feels like it's like, I don't know, like 100 degrees, right? It feels like an oven because all that heat is trapped inside of there, right? And then during that's like beginning of the day. And then during the later half of the day, you would get to like maybe like 92, something in that range. And then nighttime was what was really surprising. At nighttime, as soon as it hit past like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, the temperature would plummet to like about like 75 to 78. Drastically, it would be a big plummet at night to the point where you'd have to wear like a sweater in the morning time. When these guys would wake up, we would get up at like 6, 7 a.m. and we have to like put on sweaters and long sleeves because it's cold from the night before, you know, and then the temperatures would increase pretty rapidly after that portion of the night. But I was not expecting that big of a drop of temperature during the nighttime. That was something that, because I would have brought sweaters or I would have brought blankets, and I was like, it's gonna be too hot. I'm just gonna be in my hammock. And by the morning time, half of the clothes that I brought would be like all wrapped around me because it's so cold at night, you know?
Yeah, that's something I didn't expect really. Saying like, you know, the Indonesian islands are usually known for being hot. And yeah, I think that's an eye-opener really. So it's great to hear from firsthand what it actually is like.
Yeah, I don't know if it's maybe because I'm there during the monsoon season. You know, I was there from January. So I spent New Year's and my birthday there. So I was there from January 23rd until I want to say, I was there December 23rd. I was there from December 23rd all the way to January 23rd. So I was there for an entire month. I got to see, and so that's like I would say the middle portion of the monsoon season. So I don't know if maybe the excess rain cools it down quite considerably over there. You know, we also dealt with a lot of overcast during our time there. So again, I don't know if that's why the temperatures are a little bit lower versus when if you go like mid June or August or something like that, you know?
Yeah. So I was planning to go. I want to go to Sumatra at some point in my life. So I want to go and find wild Salvatore Kameni.
That'd be cool, man. Those are super cool.
I don't know. They're very rare to find in the wild. We have to know someone, wouldn't you? So, so going on to a different subject, then, into obviously the islands of Batanta and stuff like that. So, what other animals, reptiles, and amphibians did you encounter whilst you're out there? And just give me the full.
Yeah, man, like a lot of cool stuff. So one of the biggest things that we found over there were these very big populations of skinks all over the place, and it was crazy. Like every single place that we went to had a different coloration of skinks. So we would go to one part of Batanta to another part of Batanta. On one part, we would find these really bright gold skinks with blue tails. On another part of Batanta, we'd find the same skinks with red tails. On another part of Batanta, we'd find the same skinks with all black tails. And every island you went to, it was like a different coloration of these same skinks.
Wow.
It was really crazy to see that. I wasn't expecting that, you know. We saw beautiful horned mountain lizards over there. I have a couple videos of those guys. A bunch of different bird species. We got to see a couple of dwarf cassowary, and we got to see footprints for I don't know if they were dwarfs or not, but I was seeing footprints of birds that were like this big, and I was just like, dude, that looks like a raptor, bro. Like, what's in this jungle, you know? And they were like, oh, that's just a dwarf, that's just the baby. I'm like, what the hell, dude? Like, so we saw a lot of that stuff. I got to see a really cool mammal over there that they have. It's like a tree possum. It's called the couscous. If you look at what those things are, those are very beautiful animals. I got to see those guys, many species of different crabs, many marine life. While I was out there, I got to see black tip sharks and because all this other type of stuff over there. And then one of the cooler, we didn't see a lot of snakes, unfortunately. I was hoping we see a lot of pythons and things like that, like pipeline pythons and stuff. But we did run into two very venomous snakes, two of the biggest killers over there, which was the Papuan white snake, or the small white snake, which is an all white snake, indicative of that island. That's one of the biggest killers of people in that island, because there's no anti-venom for this animal yet. And then also the Papuan death adder. We got to see one of those guys. Both of them very close to our camps. Oh, and then another crazy species of gecko we found. I had never seen this before, and I had run this through a friend of mine who's a herpetologist about what this might have been, and we saw a very large species of bent-tailed gecko, which I don't know if I've ever seen one of those, but the bent-tailed geckos, from what I saw, only get about this big. And we found a bent-tailed gecko that was about like, if I was put like tip of the finger here, like this big of a bent-tailed gecko, the size of like a lychee. And we took a video. It was like the size of a full-grown lychee that had the head that was like this wide, and it looked exactly like a tokay gecko, except for the coloration was the coloration of a bent-tailed gecko, and it had claws. So it was a really crazy gecko species that we'd found. And again, I ran it by my friend. He said he was for sure that it was a bent-tailed species, but I was just like, well, I've never seen one this big in my life, you know. So lots of cool animals though, man. Lots of cool, other than just tree monitors. And we also saw indica species, which are like mangrove monitors and everything like that over there as well.
Yeah. I've seen your video where you was holding, I don't know whether it was wild or it was.
Yeah. I forgot. Yeah, the crocodile monitor. That was a treat, dude. I was not expecting that. That was at the first leg of the trip. We were about to leave into the jungle, and we were talking to the villagers, picking up our crew, and then they were like, my guides were like, oh, he's here to find McCrae. And then one of the guys was like, oh, McCrae, I have one. So he goes to his house and he pulls a McCrae out that he had in his house that he was keeping as his pet. And I tried to buy it from him because in the video you heard it, you're like, how much does he want for this? I was trying to buy it so that we can then release it back to where we were going to look for these guys, right? But he didn't want to sell it, unfortunately. And then another guy's like, oh, he's getting all this. This guy's getting all this like clout. He's got blue tree monitor. He's like, look, check this out. And he brings out a Salvador, a crocodile monitor. And I'm like, what the hell? And I asked him, like, where did he even get this thing from? And the guy was like, he was just tending to his house, and it crawled out from like underneath his house, and he caught it and he kept it as a pet. And I was just like, what the crap, man? And that set the tone for the trip, because like if they're this near, if they're this close, and this like here, we're gonna find them for sure. And sure enough, we did. We didn't find any crocodile monitors, but we definitely found the blue tree monitors, which is cool.
Yeah, that's probably an experience of a lifetime. You know, some dude walking out of his house with a Salvador. And
a small one that small. You know, I've never seen one that small that I could hold, and that was a really cool experience. You know, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned before about you were speaking to some of the locals, and they said they described some certain species.
What's going on? What would you say?
When you mentioned to me before about the locals mentioning different new species that may not be discovered yet.
Oh yeah. So while we were over there, I don't want to say too much about this horde thing or anything like that. But while we were over there, we caught wind of. You guys got to realize this first off, right? The Raja Ampat is ginormous. It's humongous. Like Batanta is the most famous out of these places, and Sarong is the most famous, and Biak and all these places are the most famous because they're directly next to the mainland. They're like, these guys don't have to travel too far to get to these specific islands, right? But the rest of the Raja Ampat has not been explored yet, or by Westerners or by Europeans or anything like that. It hasn't been explored because if I'm not mistaken, there's probably over like 3,000 separate islands that make up Indonesia. So there's so many different islands still that need to be investigated and seen. And so the potential of there being anything out there is great. You guys heard there's probably somewhere out there with a purple tree monitor or a freaking white tree monitor. Who knows, So while we were out there, I don't want to give out too much information, but we were made aware of 2 potential undescribed species of tree monitor that we had seen. And we also were made aware of another gentleman that had been by recently that had possibly discovered another potential species of tree monitor. So there's 3 of them so far that are undiscovered or undescribed that we are aware about. And we know the locations, but we're just gonna wait to see what we find out about that sort of stuff,
Yeah, that is pretty cool. That is some dope stuff. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, I'm not saying that I would want one of these things named after me if we were to describe it, but I would love to be one of the first people to ever capture it on video or something like that, or see it to share. I think it's so interesting how diverse these species are. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It really is crazy over there. And Yeah, there's so much to explore. I wish I was younger. So I had 10 years. I wish I was 20 years old starting this, so I had 10 years fresh to go discover over there, but we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm still young.
So like you said, obviously reptiles and animals. So what sort of birds, apart from the dwarf cassowary, do you see out there? Was there any big birds or?
We saw. So one of the cool things that we did get that I did get on video, and I try to show you guys on that live stream, were the eagles that were out there. There were these really cool brown. They're like brown and white eagles over there. And one of the things that we learned from the locals was that the presence of these eagles indicated the potential for tree monitors to be around. Because when we would look for tree monitors, the guides would notice that usually when they saw one, there was a giant eagle circling around, looking for tree monitors to eat. And so that was an indication that we were able to see that these guys were out there, which was really cool. We also saw a lot of cockatoo, the white cockatoo, as well as black cockatoos out there, which was really cool. Yeah, and then we also saw a bunch of bird of paradises out there, which is beautiful. I got to see the blue bird of paradise. And then another, I don't know what this particular bird species was, but it was a very beautiful bird species that was completely blue, and it had this giant, like, long feather on its tail that was like 10 times the length of its body. It was so beautiful, honestly, the animals that we saw out there. So lots of birds. I mean, honestly, the Raja Empire probably has one of the most diverse species of birds in the world. And you can see some of the more beautiful birds out there than you'd ever see anywhere. The bird of paradise, the Weliani, I think that's what it's called, and the normal bird of paradise that everyone's know that. Like every one of those islands has their own specific ecosystem that's so unique to them that it's just you lose yourself just being immersed in that country.
Yeah. So what you're describing is basically Pandora in the film of Avatar.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's a pretty dope film to be fair. So yeah, I really want to go at some point. I think it'd be awesome to head out there and do another month out there at some point. That's definitely in the future. But
yeah.
But so I got a few more questions. So obviously we were talking about the locals and stuff like that out there. So they do a lot of the import and export stuff. The Europeans and the US. Can you explain the process of how it starts and how it ends? If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely. This is a very good topic of conversation. So I want to preface this by saying that, like, I got to witness exactly how these animals are captured, right? And what that means bringing them into the market. So I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, I'm the first person right now to have documented that potentially in that space for Maracay in particular, right? Because I've never seen no one's ever shared any information about this other than like photos. But I think this is the first video that we were able to capture in 4K where these guys go up in the trees and capture these guys. And just to give a little bit of a background on this stuff, the whole reason for the economy behind the blue tree monitors being captured and sold is that the island of Batanta is not a very rich island. I just got to tell you guys that from the get-go. And it's not a big populated island. Like, as of right now, the last census done on Batanta, there was only a total of 500 people in the entire population of Batanta on that entire island that were documented. There could be less, there could be more, who knows? But it's not a very rich island. There's not a lot of resources on there that are being used right now to fund the island, right? And so a lot of these guys are dependent on odd jobs like logging, farming, palm oil farming, going to the mainland to produce work, or farming on their land and selling that at the local market, or fishing, right? And so the economy behind catching blue tree monitors was created in order to sustain themselves, in order to put into their economy so they can provide food for themselves. And these people don't use the blue tree monitors as their own pets. They don't flaunt the blue tree monitor. You don't go to Sarong or Batanta and they're like, check out blue tree monitor merchandise. They don't have that, right? It's more so like the reason why they're catching these animals is because they know that they can get paid for these animals. And that's what's important to them. And I understand that aspect. But unfortunately, during the course of them doing this for so long, the populations have been decreasing considerably. And now, one thing that everyone needs to know about the tree monitor market in general is that the majority of the tree monitor market in the entire world is illegal. Every single one of these tree monitors that are coming into any type of place is an illegal animal. The country of Indonesia protects every single one of their animals. The green tree monitor, the blue tree monitor, the green tree monitor, Cordensis, Bomei, Resin guy, all of these Bakari, all these guys are protected under Indonesian government. But if you're able to farm these animals and they breed them in captivity in Indonesia, they're allowed to export them. And so this is how we're getting these animals. Under the guise of farm-bred animals, they're honestly wild caught and then shipped out under the pretenses of them being farm-raised. So it's an illegal economy, first off. Any tree monitor you see in the USA or in Europe that's wild caught is 100% been illegally poached and trafficked into this market. That's furthermore, I have to say that, right? The only caveat as to why the blue tree monitor is so in danger right now is because it's the only tree monitor species out of the entire list that's not protected by the Indonesian government. For some reason, that's the only one that's not protected by the Indonesian government. So if a Papuan were to catch a blue tree monitor and come into Sarong and the police catch him, it's not illegal to have that animal. But if he was caught with a Bomei, that's illegal. It's a really weird cause. I don't know why, but it is. And so that's why these guys are catching these animals at a significant rate and selling them. Now, one of the reasons why they're risking life and limb for these animals out there is because of how much money they get for these animals that are sold into the pet market. And if I tell you this price, man, you're going to go crazy, to be quite honest, right? Or the listeners are going to go crazy. Just for reference, here in the USA, a captive bred blue tree monitor, if it's born here in the USA, sells for about $3,000 on average, $2,500 to $3,000 on average. A wild caught individual is sold for about anywhere between $1,800 to $2,500, depending on what male or female or in the condition of the animal. A wild caught blue tree monitor sold from a hunter on Batanta to Sarong, he is paid only the equivalent of $15 to $20 USA for one animal. So when you think about how much money they're getting paid per animal, this is why they're being taken out so fast, because these guys, in order to pay for their entire week's worth or to make it worth it for them, right? Because everything's so expensive, they have to pay gas to get to these places. They have to bring food. They have to bring resources. They have to bring people. This all costs money. In order just to pay for the trip to get there, they're going to have to catch at least 10 of these animals just to pay for that. Right. And then the extra animal that they get pays for the remainder of money that they can use to provide for their family, put food on the table, buy their kids clothing, send their kids to school, etc. So it's crazy. That's what's happening out there. And so this animal in turn is sold from Indonesia to the Asian market, and they're getting their cut. And then the Asian market sells it to the European or the US market. They get their cut. And then that's where you see these animals coming into USA for the prices you see them. But it's actually pretty sad knowing that these animals are being exploited for it's not even worth it, the risk. When you see these guys climbing up these trees, 40 feet high, 30 feet high, 50 feet high up for one lizard that they're going to get, that's a day wage. Like, I guess for some people it's worth it, but they could kill themselves if they fall down from those heights, seriously maim themselves. And they risk it for this little bit of pay. It's really crazy. And I think that's a side that most people don't realize, right? Everyone's like, oh, tree monitor, I want a tree monitor. Tree monitors are so cool. But they don't realize what it took for the animal to even get here, and the damage that's being done. Like, I got to say this too, because this is something I'm not proud of, but all my animals, the majority of my animals are wild caught. And when I got into this, I wasn't thinking about, what's happening in Batanta. I didn't care about what was happening in Batanta. There was not even a thought in my mind until I got out there and saw it for myself and realized what's happening, And I know that me as an influencer or someone that shows these animals online, all I'm doing is perpetuating that excitement, that want for other people to want these animals as well. That's making them being pulled out the wild even quicker. And that's why I'm so passionate about working with these animals and trying to educate people and put this information out and realize like, hey man, like I get you want these animals. I get they're amazing. I get that a wild caught is cheaper than a captive bred, but maybe if you wait and you just give it some time and allow these animals to be established and we help out the ones that are in the wild and stop what's happening to these animals, we can have a future where we can all still love these animals and see these animals without them being lost, you know, because that's one thing I don't want to be 60 years old and when I go to Batanta and I don't even see a blue tree monitor because they're all gone. You know, I don't want that to happen, you know? So yeah, man, it's a crazy, I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about that topic because I got to see it firsthand and I get to realize what's happening and what's going on. And it's a very, very sad ordeal, unfortunately, you know, something nobody really wants to talk about it because it's a touchy subject. And if that's just only happening to blue tree monitors, imagine what's happening to all the other animals, you know, all the other animals out here. You got to think about that, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a sad topic at the moment, you know, they're basically endangered species now, aren't they? Is it critically endangered now?
No, I don't think they are endangered right now. They're protected. They're on the verge of being endangered. And I think the USA is petitioning right now to put them on the red list, which is the protected endangered species list, which will put them on CITES 1. So meaning we cannot import any more of these guys. And the regulations are going to make them very hard for us to even keep them in the USA because they're going to end state-to-state transportation of these animals. So if you have one in your state, you're not allowed to move it out your state legally, you know. So it's going to be a very tough year for the future of this stuff. But, you know, I'm still holding on. I'm not letting that stuff stop me from my projects.
Yeah, of course. That's so it's an inspiration to see you doing what you're doing. So definitely. So if someone wanted to go to, you know, Batanta and see this firsthand with yourself or, you know, someone else, how do they reach out?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you could reach out to me. I'm an open book with this information and everything like that. You know, if people are very serious about wanting to come out to Batanta and seeing these animals, I'm going to be doing my own future expeditions to these lands because I'm going to continue to do my work over there, you know, but I'm also going to be providing the resources for people to want to do this as well. You know, it's not easy, you know, in order to find someone that can translate from their native language to English and communicate with us, set everything up, talk to other people as well, figure out the logistics. It's not easy to find that information. And luckily I was blessed enough to be able to be given that information while out there. It took me a year to develop this network out there now that I'm very confident about currently. And so my plan is to open up that access to other people as well. Because, you know, me going out there, I was gatekept from the information. When I was out there trying to find this information, people were like, bug off here, or like, no, or trying to stop it and things like that in certain situations. And so I don't want that to happen to the other people because one important thing, like going back to the topic I was saying earlier about how like the Batanta and the Raja Ampat isn't a rich like country. These people aren't the richest people. The more we go out there and the more we spend with them, it helps out their economy. And it's a good thing for us to be out there, you know? And we also bring awareness to these people and the animals over there by going out there. So the more people out there, honestly, it's the better for those people. So contact me. You know, you can reach me on Father Blue. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Reach out, man. I'm going to be doing a couple expeditions myself. So I'll post those up. And if people want to join, you guys pay for your guys' own, you know, traveling and chip into the fees here and there. And then we can make it happen. I don't see why not, you know?
Yeah, decent. So I will link all your stuff in the description when this comes out. So everyone, you know, click on your links, speak to you, whatever. If you want to do it, then I suggest just go and do it. Like you only live once in this life, so yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So talking about Batanta, so what are your future plans? And you don't have to say too much, but what are your sort of plans for the rest of the year? How many times do you plan on going?
We're gonna go a couple times for sure. We're gonna go a couple times. So the plan is we got a lot more filming to do out there and everything like that. You know, we got a lot of interviews the first time. We got a lot of footage the first time. We're trying to go ahead and capture a specific moment out there that hasn't been captured yet on camera or footage or anything like that. So we really want to go ahead and capture that. Get some more information of certain exporters out there as well. It's a weird market that's happening over there right now. A lot of these people that are catching these animals are being arrested. A lot of the government's cracking down on this illegal poaching over there right now. So just to get the stories of the people behind the protecting of these animals, we want to catch some of those interviews. And we also have some interviews with some very predominant players in the bringing these animals into the market in the first place. So just having interviews with those people as well. So we got a lot more work to do. Again, that's why the documentary is about a year out that we're planning to push it out. But yeah, if you guys make it out to those trips, make it out. And for the record, once this documentary is done, it does not mean I'm going to stop going to Batanta or Indonesia. There's so much work to be done out there for what I'm trying to do, as well as protecting these animals in general, that I'm not going to finish going to these lands just because I'm done with this documentary. The ultimate goal is, once me and my partner here are finished with what we have to do here in the city, New York City, I want to live out in those lands for at least a year or two, live abroad, why not? Just to give back to that community, build something over there, and just live a different life outside of America. So, there's a lot of stuff in the works, at least. Like you said, you only live once, so I might as well live it.
Yeah, man, do it. Like, I also heard congratulations on you and your partner, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that was beautiful, man. Yeah, on the way back, I mentioned this in the live, coming back from the trip, I proposed to my partner as soon as we saw each other for the first time. I had this mentality going into Batanta that there's the potential for me to die out there, to be quite honest, whether it's like a heart attack or falling off some cliff or getting bit by some mosquito, or there were so many, or getting bit by a venomous snake. I had this in my mind, but I knew that if I came back, I was going to propose to my girlfriend. So I came back with, I bought the ring in Indonesia, in Serang. Not Serang. I bought that in Jakarta, and I proposed to her with a diamond ring with a sapphire in the middle. And the sapphire represents the entire trip and the motivation behind working with the Blue Tree Monitors, me going to Indonesia for the first time with the Blue Tree Monitors. So it's a story me and her are going to share for the rest of our life. She knows I'm so passionate about this, and she's been such a big supporter of this entire project that it's a way for me to remember it and then her remember it because I'm making her my wife. So
that's brilliant, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So like you have your plans to go back and stuff like that. Are you doing expeditions anytime soon, or is it another solo trip, or?
I would be open to letting people join my next trip for sure. I have one person joining me as well, who's another videographer who's going to help me on some portions of my project, as well as his own freelance stuff. And if there's people again that are serious about joining an expedition like that, I have no qualms. But you have to be serious about it. You have to know what your limitations are, what you're fully capable of being able to do, and being honest with me and yourself that this is what you want to do. Because I'll be honest with you, man, this trip was not an easy trip. We climbed up some hills where the elevation was like this, and I'm slipping and sliding all over the place, and then you got to climb back down the same elevation like this, and you could potentially fall and hurt yourself very bad, So again, you got to be a very confident person. I'm lucky that I have my own experience in off the trail hiking and we have New York up here, upstate, where there's tons of trails, a lot of rock climbing, a lot of stuff. So I'm fairly already confident with that. I have the gear to help me out with that stuff. So I'm fully prepared on whatever I need to do, and these people trust me now because they saw my abilities. You need to be able to be confident in yourself and your own abilities. But again, the more, the merrier. I don't have no problem with people going on. The more people go, the cheaper the trip becomes for everybody at the same time.
Yeah. So, like, when you were going back to when you were in camping out at night and stuff, what sort of gear were you using tent wise? Was it just a normal tent? Was it a special tent or?
No, so I actually forgo the tent. I didn't want to do a tent because I wanted to do lightweight packing. So I actually had a very extended hammock. I had a 12-foot hammock that had a 12-foot hammock. They also had like a rain shelter over top of it. Had a mosquito net. It was double layered, so I wasn't getting bit up by mosquitoes or anything like that at night. I also had a tarp on the ground to protect me from any type of snakes or anything like that that might have been in the area. And I brought so much equipment. I brought batteries that would last us about 6 days worth of electricity. I bought solar panels to make sure we had everything we needed to charge up our stuff on the way back. And, I also ended up bringing extra gear for some of the people there as well, like hammocks and extra tents and sleeping pads for the guys to be able to use while we were out there. So, yeah, so that was pretty much the gist of it. Was like, again, I use a hammock. It was a lot more convenient, easier to set up, easier to take down, and lighter weight and everything like that. I brought about like 15 pairs of socks to change out, so I always had dry socks. I brought specifically jungle terrain mountain boots, which were just like for easy drainage and everything like that. That was the biggest thing that I hated, man, was that mine was perpetually wet the entire time. Every day, every single morning, you wake up, you go to sleep wet, you wake up wet. And that sucked the most, man. But no, I had a couple shirts and pants to switch out of for the most part, But again, I have all the gear necessary. Like even my camera bag that I use to trek out there is probably like $1,000 all-terrain, waterproof, mountain gear camera bag. Like stuff to protect my camera equipment and everything like that. And I had enough people to help me carry gear as well. So it was something that was, again, I was very prepared, over-prepared for this trip, for sure.
Definitely. And I'm going to follow up my last question, which I do on every single podcast. If you could give one piece of advice to someone getting into the hobby or doing going out on to these different wonderful wonders of the world, what would it be? What is your one piece of advice?
Oh, I love giving this advice, man. But I would say do what makes you happy in this industry, in this world, in life, everything that I can say. I know it's a very cliche thing, but so many people get stuck up on like what other people think about them and what other people say about them, and maybe something negative happens and you figure that's the rest of your life after that. But don't let those small moments be the rest of your bigger moments. I could have let the negativity that surrounded some of the leading up to my trip stop me from going this. When people try to stop me from going on the trip the first time, I could have said, that's it, I'm never doing this again. But I persevered. I found new ways. I found my own people that would take me out there. I was resourceful enough to make the trip happen. I came up with it took up so much courage to make the leap to even go out there and do this and then present this information to people. And if I would have listened to everyone else instead of listening to myself and what I had in here, I would have never done it. So please, you guys, I know it's so cliche. Don't be afraid to follow your dreams. Don't let other people affect you. Remember, this is the internet. And the internet is not important. Real life is important. Real life experiences are more important than what goes on online. So keep that in mind, you guys. That's the best advice I can do. Just do what makes you happy, man.
That is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given. So thank you.
No problem, man.
Right, we're going to end it here. Thank you for coming on. Stick around. I'll chat to you after. All right. So, yeah.
No problem,
thank you for coming on, mate. And I hope
you so much.
Soon.
Thank you, dude. See you guys later. Thank you for having me.
And that was episode 4 of the Reptile Chronicles podcast. Thank you very much for watching today, and thank you to Eddie for coming on and sharing his, trip and his experiences in Batanta and his life experiences with keeping these wonderful species. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, a comment, and subscribing to the channel. The links for all our socials will be in the description as well as Eddie's. And thank you very much for watching, and see you on the next one. Peace out.